A wealthy hotel owner, Jerome Wilson, decides to visit one of his hotels undercover. What he finds? A nightmare. Rude staff, scamming guests, and a manager turning a blind eye. But when they treat him like just another nobody, they make a huge mistake. Jerome won't let his empire crumble. He takes matters into his own hands, exposing corruption, firing the guilty, and restoring the hotel's lost honor. If you love these kinds of stories, don't forget to comment below where you're watching from. And support us by liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel. The moment Jerome Wilson stepped into the grand lobby of the Sterling Regent, he knew something was off. It wasn't the decor, everything was pristine. The marble floors gleamed under the soft golden glow of the chandeliers, and the air carried the faintest hint of lavender and polished wood. It wasn't the service, at least, not the kind the hotel claimed to offer. No, it was something else. A feeling. An undercurrent of something sour beneath the polished luxury. He adjusted the strap of his leather duffel bag, taking in the sight before him. He had designed this space himself, or at least approved every detail of it. The high ceilings, the intricate moldings, the plush velvet chairs arranged in cozy clusters for guests to relax. Everything about the Sterling Regent screamed excellence. And yet, here he was, standing at the front desk, waiting. Waiting to be acknowledged. Waiting to be seen. It wasn't crowded. Only a few guests lingered around, an older couple sipping cocktails near the lounge, a businessman tapping away on his laptop, a young woman scrolling through her phone as she waited for a bellhop. It wasn't like the staff was overwhelmed either. No rush, no check-in line. Just one receptionist behind the front desk, completely engrossed in her phone. Jerome cleared his throat. Nothing. Tapped the desk lightly. Still nothing. The young woman, maybe in her early 20s, had the bored expression of someone counting down the seconds until her shift ended. Blonde hair in a high ponytail, nails painted an aggressive shade of red, scrolling through her phone with the single-minded focus of a teenager ignoring chores. Her name tag read Kim. Jerome let out a slow breath and tried again. "Excuse me?" Kim sighed, loudly, dramatically, the kind of sigh reserved for people who dared to interrupt someone's very important nothing. Without lifting her head, she blinked up at him as if just now realizing he existed. Yeah. No greeting. No polite smile. Not even a standard welcome to the Sterling Regent. Just that one flat syllable, spoken as if the effort alone drained her soul. Jerome tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "I have a reservation. Jerome Wilson." Kim barely concealed a smirk as she turned to the computer, her fingers tapping against the keyboard with the enthusiasm of a sedated sloth. Nope. Don't see it." Jerome arched a brow. "You sure about that?" She shrugged, still not looking up. "Pretty sure." And just like that, she returned to scrolling her phone, as if that was the end of the conversation. This wasn't a system error. This wasn't a simple mistake. This was a decision. She had taken one look at him, at the casual hoodie and dark jeans, at the lack of an entourage or an obvious air of importance, and decided he wasn't worth her time. It wasn't the first time he'd been dismissed like this. It wasn't even the 10th. People always had a way of deciding in an instant who mattered and who didn't, who belonged and who didn't. And despite being the man who had built this very empire, the man whose name was on every employee's paycheck, he had just been deemed unworthy of basic courtesy. Jerome inhaled deeply, forcing a smile. "Check again." Kim rolled her eyes but humored him, tapping lazily at the keyboard. "Nope. Still nothing." The fake sympathy in her voice made his jaw tighten. Jerome calmly pulled out his phone, scrolling to his confirmation email. He held it up, showing her the official booking, clear as day. "I have my reservation right here." Kim barely glanced at the screen before shaking her head. "Yeah, well, the system doesn't lie. Neither does my damn email." She let out another exaggerated sigh. "Look, sir, maybe you made a mistake. It happens. Maybe you booked the wrong location. Happens all the time." Jerome tilted his head, voice as smooth as glass. "You saying I'm lost?" Kim smirked, that condescending little smile people use when they think they're talking to an idiot. "I'm saying it's an easy mistake to make." There it was again. The assumption. The immediate dismissal. The quiet belief that a man like him, a black man dressed in casual clothes, alone, with no obvious markers of wealth, couldn't possibly belong in this place. And suddenly, Jerome wasn't just standing in a luxury hotel lobby anymore. He was back in his 20s, trying to rent his first office space, being told there were no vacancies. He was 30, sitting in a high-end dealership, being ignored while the salesman fawned over another customer. He was 42, on a first-class flight, asked twice if he was in the right seat. Not today. Jerome exhaled slowly, his smile sharpening. And if I wasn't lost? If my reservation was here all along? Kim shrugged. Then I guess the system glitched. Jerome knew this system. It didn't glitch. People did. And something about the way she still wouldn't look him in the eye, the way she refused to double-check, the way she dismissed him so damn easily. He'd seen this before. And Kim had no idea who she was dealing with. Jerome exhaled slowly, pressing his lips together as he studied Kim. She was still glued to her phone, her expression blank, as if he were just another guest she could wave away with a few keystrokes. He could have corrected her right then and there, could have pulled rank, demanded better service, made a scene. But he didn't. Not yet. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. Let's try something different. Kim sighed again, not even trying to hide her irritation. Sir, if you don't have a reservation, I can't. Jerome raised a hand, cutting her off. Check under Sterling Holdings. For the first time, a flicker of confusion crossed Kim's face. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard, then she begrudgingly started typing. The glow of the monitor reflected in her wide eyes as she read whatever appeared on the screen. She swallowed. Oh. Jerome watched her closely, noting the way her posture stiffened, the slight tremble in her fingers as she scrolled through the system. Oh, he echoed, his tone still mild. Kim licked her lips, forcing a stiff smile. It looks like... Like what? She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. It looks like we do have a reservation under Sterling Holdings. A penthouse suite. Jerome nodded, feigning surprise. Is that so? Kim's cheeks darkened. Must have been a system error. Of course. The system. Jerome tapped the desk lightly. A system error. Nothing to do with the fact that you didn't bother checking properly the first time. Kim's mouth opened, then closed again. Or the second time? She swallowed hard. Or that you were ready to dismiss me without so much as an apology? Her face was turning red now, but she still tried to keep up the act. Sir, Stop. The word wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It carried weight. Jerome straightened, adjusting his duffel bag on his shoulder. The lobby, once a place of distant background noise, had grown eerily quiet. The older couple in the lounge had stopped talking. The businessman had looked up from his laptop. Even the young woman scrolling through her phone was now watching, sensing that something was shifting. Jerome exhaled sharply. Do you know who I am? Kim opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. She didn't know. Not yet. I'm Jerome Wilson, he continued, founder and CEO of Sterling Holdings. The Sterling Regent is one of my hotels. Kim went still. The color drained from her face so fast that Jerome almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I built this place, he went on. Approved every detail, hired the best designers, created a vision for what luxury should feel like. And yet, he tilted his head, his voice laced with something cold and sharp. Here I am, standing in my own lobby, being treated like I don't belong. Kim's breath hitched. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. Jerome's smile was razor thin. You never even looked. Kim's hands twisted together. I swear, Mr. Wilson, it wasn't personal. It was just a system error, he finished for her. She winced. He let that hang in the air for a moment before he spoke again, softer this time. Tell me something, Kim. She nodded rapidly, desperate to fix this. If I had looked different, if I had walked in wearing a tailored suit, would the system still have glitched? Kim flinched like she'd been struck. Jerome didn't expect an answer. He already knew. A cough broke the silence. A man in his mid-50s, dressed in a sleek black suit, hurried forward. His name tag read Robert Sinclair, General Manager. His face was taut with barely contained panic. "Mr. Wilson," Robert greeted, his voice overly bright with forced enthusiasm. "We weren't expecting you." "No," Jerome said coolly, "I imagine you weren't." Robert shot a quick glance at Kim, and in that moment, Jerome knew. This wasn't just one employee's mistake. This was a culture problem. Robert cleared his throat. I apologize for the misunderstanding. It seems there was some confusion at the front desk." "Confusion?" Jerome mused. "Is that what we're calling it?" Robert paled. "Sir, I assure you." "Save it." Jerome took a step back, glancing around the lobby. The polished floors. The expensive furniture. The carefully crafted atmosphere of wealth and exclusivity. He had built this place to be a sanctuary. A symbol of success. A testament to the fact that anyone, no matter their background, could rise to greatness. But what good was all of that if the people running it still operated on outdated biases? He turned back to Kim, who looked close to tears. "You see," Jerome said, his voice softer now, "it's not about one mistake. It's about patterns. Habits. Who gets the benefit of the doubt and who doesn't?" He gave her a long, measured look. "And right now, your habits are showing." Kim swallowed hard, her eyes darting to Robert, as if begging him to step in. But Robert didn't move. He knew better. Jerome studied them both, then exhaled, shaking his head. "Effective immediately, Kim, you're relieved of your duties." Kim gasped. "Wait, And Robert," Jerome continued, shifting his attention to the manager, "we're going to have a conversation about your leadership. If one of your employees is comfortable behaving like this in my hotel, then I have to wonder what kind of culture you've been fostering." Robert's mouth opened and closed, but he had no argument. Jerome adjusted the strap of his duffel bag and picked up his phone, already typing out a message to HR. This wasn't just about him. It was about making sure the next guest who walked through those doors, whether they looked like they belonged or not, would be treated with the dignity they deserved. And if his own people couldn't get that right, then he'd find new ones who could. Kim's smug expression barely faltered as she returned to scrolling on her phone. To her, Jerome was just another insignificant guest making a fuss over nothing. If she wanted to play that game, Jerome would let her. But she wouldn't like how it ended. Jerome glanced toward the other employees behind the desk. A young bellhop, maybe 19, stood awkwardly near the luggage cart, pretending not to notice the exchange. Another receptionist, a middle-aged man in a navy blue blazer, was focused on the computer, tapping away as if the entire interaction didn't exist. Nobody wanted to intervene. Nobody wanted to correct Kim. Because either they agreed with her assumption that he didn't belong, or they knew and simply didn't care enough to stop it. Either way, Jerome had his answer. With a calm smile, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, dialing a number he knew by heart. A deep voice answered on the first ring. "Mr. Wilson?" "Terrence," Jerome said smoothly, his eyes still locked on Kim. "I need you to pull the guest logs for the Sterling Regent." There was a brief pause. Then, "Right away, sir." Jerome hung up, sliding the phone back into his pocket. Kim barely looked up. "You done?" she asked, a bored edge to her voice. Jerome chuckled softly. "Not even close." Less than 30 seconds later, the sleek double doors at the far end of the lobby swung open. A tall man in a tailored charcoal suit strode in, his polished Oxfords clicking against the marble. Terrence Porter, general manager of the Sterling Regent, moved with the quiet authority of a man who didn't waste time. Kim's posture stiffened. She didn't know who Jerome was. But she knew Terrence. He was the kind of boss who rarely showed up at the front desk unless something serious was about to go down. "Mr. Wilson," Terrence greeted, his voice steady. "Is there a problem?" Jerome smiled. He could feel Kim's confusion now, the way her fingers twitched slightly, the way her gaze darted between him and her boss. She was realizing, too late, that she had miscalculated. Jerome leaned against the counter, his voice calm, deliberate. "Not at all, Terrence. Just a minor glitch in the system." Kim swallowed hard, her fingers still gripping the counter like it might somehow keep her from sinking into the hole she had just dug. Terrence turned his sharp gaze toward her. Kim, is there an issue with Mr. Wilson's reservation? Kim's mouth opened, then closed. Her mind was racing, scrambling for an excuse, but she was quickly realizing that there was none. I didn't see it in the system, she stammered. Jerome smirked. That's interesting. He casually pulled out his second phone, tapped the screen, and flipped it around for both of them to see. Because I see it just fine. Confirmed. Paid in full. Booked under my name. Kim's face lost what little color it had left. Terrence leaned over to inspect the screen, his expression darkening. Kim, he said slowly, did you manually delete this reservation? Kim shook her head frantically. No. I don't think so. Maybe the system glitched. Enough, Terrence cut in, his voice firm. He tapped a few keys on the computer and pulled up the internal activity log. Within seconds, there it was. Reservation manually deleted by Kim R. Terrence's jaw tightened. His fingers flexed against the desk. Kim's breath hitched audibly. I didn't mean to. I thought it was a duplicate or... Jerome raised an eyebrow. A duplicate? He crossed his arms, tilting his head. That's funny. Because you didn't even bother to check my confirmation email before dismissing me. You just assumed. Kim was trembling now. I'm so sorry, sir. Jerome held up a hand. Don't apologize to me. He gestured toward Terrence. Apologize to him. He's the one who now has to explain why his front desk staff is deleting VIP reservations without cause. Terrence exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. Kim, go to the back office. Now. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then spun on her heel and practically fled, her heels clicking erratically against the marble. Jerome turned to Terrence, a knowing smirk on his face. So, what are we going to do about this? Terrence sighed, his shoulders stiff. We're going to handle it, Mr. Wilson. Jerome nodded. Good. Because I'm not done yet. Terrence exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. Mr. Wilson, I assure you, this will be dealt with immediately. Jerome studied him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. See that it is. But this isn't just about Kim. He gestured toward the front desk, where a few other employees stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. This is about a culture that allowed her to operate like this unchecked. Terrence straightened, nodding solemnly. I understand. Good, Jerome said, adjusting his cuffs. Because I'm implementing some changes, effective immediately. He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. This is Wilson. Shut this location down for a full-scale audit. Every guest is to be compensated, and every staff member is to be re-evaluated. He paused, his gaze locked onto Terrence. And let's start with management. Terrence's eyes widened slightly. Sir? Jerome pocketed his phone and gave him a hard look. You let this hotel rot under your nose. I'm bringing in a new manager. Terrence's lips parted, but no words came out. After a moment, he simply bowed his head. Understood. Jerome turned to the remaining front desk staff. Listen up, he announced. Things are about to change. If you're here to work, to treat every guest with the respect they deserve, then you have nothing to worry about. But if you think you can keep cutting corners, mistreating people, or looking the other way when problems arise, this is your warning, there won't be another. Silence filled the lobby. Some employees exchanged nervous glances, while others gave small nods of understanding. With that, Jerome gave one final glance around the hotel he had built from the ground up. He wasn't just here to fix a mistake, he was here to ensure that no one ever questioned the standards of his empire again. As he walked toward the elevator, his phone buzzed, messages from corporate, probably some damage control efforts. He ignored them. Right now, he had bigger things to do. The elevator doors slid open, and just before stepping inside, he glanced back at Terrence. This place has potential, he said. Let's make sure it lives up to it. The doors closed, and as the elevator ascended, Jerome smirked. This was just the beginning. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to check out more of our videos. We have plenty of inspiring and powerful stories waiting for you. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.